I'm Dylan.
And I'm Kiyan.
And this is Trust Your Doctor, that podcast where we play checkers at every chance we get.
In prison. Because we're recording this from prison this week.
I don't think they let you have checkers in prison somehow. Couldn't you, sharpen the pieces and shank people or something? I mean, that's...
I guess.
That's, most of the logic behind not giving prisoners any spoons or knives or anything.
Yeah, it depends where you are. I mean, if you're in a maximum security prison, yeah, you're probably not going to be playing checkers.
Pretty sure.
Maybe if you're just in holding.
Pretty sure this is a maximum security prison, considering they're using
it probably was.
the Keller device.
Yeah.
There.
Yeah, but this week we watched The Mind of Evil. The Mind Robber of Evil. No, it's not related. But, continuing on, the Doctor's exile on Earth.
Wow. I should mention last week was the first time Gallifrey's mentioned. It happens in the third Doctor's run, but it wasn't last week. I confused two things I read, but it's happening soon-ish. So it wasn't last week.
Oh, right, okay.
But it's coming up soon.
Discussion.
It happens during the third Doctor's run. I was confusing two things I read, but just wanted to get that out of the way before we dive into this long-winded explanation of what happens in the serial.
Well, at least the serial was a little less mediocre than the last one.
The serial was pretty good. It tied up all of the plot threads pretty nicely in the end, I think.
It did, and it ended on that. It wasn't really a cliffhanger, but that note that it ended on.
That note? Wow!
Well,
Worst
you know what
way
I'm
you could
talking about.
describe that. Well, I do, but they don't.
Yeah.
Well, anyway, the Doctor and Joe show up at this prison to investigate this device that they're using now instead of capital punishment, I guess.
I guess. I mean, basically what it was that,
It basically absorbed all the evil thoughts of the prisoners.
Right, so it would, in theory, turn the most hardened of criminals into docile citizens.
Basically, yeah.
But that's gonna go wrong.
Yeah, the Doctor's being all snarky about it, yeah, nothing could go wrong with this, right, Joe? Yeah.
And the head scientist is just looking at him like, shut up.
Are you done? Predictably, something does go wrong, and the machine overloads, and Barnum is knocked out. Barnum is the prisoner in the seat, who we should mention, because he'll come up later and become an important character.
Yeah, and that thing happens to him at the end, but,
Spoilers.
That thing that happens is a spoiler? Okay.
Well, anyway, Unit, meaning the Brigadier and everyone else like Yates.
And Yates and Benton.
Wow, Benton in this serial just... Anyway.
Don't get in over your head, Benton.
They're supervising a World Peace Conference.
Yeah, and I was like, what? Why would you get UNIT, a task force designed to intercept aliens, to supervise a world peace conference? Did you think that was weird?
Yeah, I did, but I guess it can be explained that UNIT is a nationless army because they serve under the United Nations, which means they kind of be the best people to supervise a peace conference.
They are
even though they are
British.
mostly incompetent.
And they're all British, so I don't know.
They're British to us. Because they're all British actors.
Yeah, but aren't they... What? They're still British,
I guess.
I mean, if you wanted to have a truly neutral unit, then, can't have such a small sample of,
Well, it's not like they pulled in, the RAF or something.
Yeah, I'm not too bothered by it, but I was just like, why is UNIT supervising this peace conference?
I'd be more like, why are they supervising it with their current track record of incompetency?
And taking extreme measures, like with the Silurians.
Or the end of the serial where they just... Yeah. Anyway.
And they do try to cover everything up. Which I guess is a good thing, but,
Yeah, you don't want the general public freaking out about some lizard people living in the caves in the mountain, do you?
No, but, it might be
You also don't want
No,
them freaking...
yeah, you don't want them to freak out about chemical warfare. No, not really. Yeah, it's probably a good thing that they covered everything up.
Yeah, so anyway, Chin Lee comes in.
Chun-Li from Street Fighter. No.
Chin Lee shows up as like, Brigadier, you're hopeless. Secret documents have been stolen from our quarters. If this happens again, we're quitting the delegation. The Brig's like, don't worry, I'll get on it. And then Chin Lee immediately goes outside and burns the important documents and throws them in a trash can.
Did they ever explain what these documents were? Or
No,
were they just
I
secret
don't know.
documents?
They might have. Maybe I wasn't paying attention.
Yeah, I don't know. China's pissed either way. Understandably, because their documents were supposedly stolen, except Chin Lee just burns them, throws them in a trash can, in a park.
And then it zooms out and it zooms in on some guy in a car, which turns out to be the monster. Yeah. So the monster's back. No surprise. Obviously.
Yeah, we knew he was coming back. He's in every serial this season. Just putting that out there.
Spoilers!
It's pretty obvious.
We mentioned that last week, I think, so.
Even though the end of this serial kind of implies that he won't be back.
Yeah.
But he is, so. So back at the prison, the heads...
Stangmore.
Yeah, that. The scientist who was demonstrating how the machine was supposed to work, who we should mention was substituting for the guy who created the machine, a guy named Emil Keller, who wasn't able to make it to the prison.
Right.
He's kind of suspicious as to why the machine didn't work, right? So he goes back into the testing room and tries to tinker with the machine a little bit, and he falls dead after you see...
Trippy special effects.
Yeah. If there's one thing that's just blatantly, objectively better during the Third Doctor's run, it's special effects and makeup design stuff that's gotten a lot more well done. But he dies. He tinkers with the machine and he dies.
Suspiciously. But I think that's how episode 1 ends, right?
Well, the Doctor goes in to examine the...
yeah, because they examine the body and find out he had a fear of...
water, I believe it was.
Yeah, and he died of drowning, so the Doctor goes in to investigate the machine, and then it ends with...
Yeah, the Doctor's suspicious because, he supposedly died of drowning, but he was in an empty room, yeah. So the Doctor goes in to examine it, like we said, and the machine activates, and that's where episode 1 ends.
3 of the cliffhangers out of the 6 in this serial with the Doctor being attacked by that same machine.
Yeah.
Did you realize that?
Yep.
Well, anyway, cut back to the Doctor in episode 2. Joe saves him, right?
Yeah, Joe comes in, or the machine actually just stops, I think, for some reason, and I don't think they ever explain why it does. I'm pretty sure that's what happens.
No, Joe bursts into the room and the machine deactivates.
I don't know. I honestly don't remember. I'm not going to lie. I'm just going to put it out there. I don't remember how it deactivates. But,
I guess we should mention that the vision that was appearing to the Doctor was this burning fire effect, and the Doctor mentioned he had a great fear of fire. Well, it was referencing... It wasn't referencing Inferno, because he mentions he saw an entire world burn.
Yeah.
Which would be the Inferno parallel universe.
So I guess that still haunts him.
Yeah, I guess his greatest fear is failing and having everyone die. Or something like that.
Or it's just the Daleks.
Well, I mean, we're getting there.
Comes up later. We should also mention that these were recolored, because they were only recovered in black and white. So there was a
they deleted all the color. Monsters.
So this was done by a recoloration team. And episode 1 was actually done by a single person. I forget his name.
We
can find it, or we'll put it on the site or something.
Yeah, we can find it somewhere.
Which is pretty impressive. I mean,
he did it frame by frame, actually, because the team that did episodes 2 through 6 used a certain process that didn't work on episode 1 because they filmed episode 1 differently. So this one guy recolored episode 1 frame by frame. Which is...
dedication.
Yeah, he has a lot of time on his hands. Well, we'll put his name
Yeah,
up on the website.
yeah.
It'll be in the
Thanks,
description of this
Sky.
episode too. Put it in the description of the episode. So, cut back to peace conference, and the brigadier Chin Lee shows up and is like, "Hey, the new delegate's here, yo," because the previous delegate ended up getting killed in episode 1.
Right, the Chinese delegate.
So she's
It
like,
wasn't
"Hey, the new
already
delegate's
obvious.
here. If you want to meet with him." And so the Brig calls in the doctor for this, for whatever reason.
Yeah, admittedly, I probably should remember more about what happened in episodes 1 and 2.
But anyway, the doctor shows up and he. Oh, but okay, so I remember now. The doctor was there to tell the brigadier that he should destroy the Keller
Oh, right.
device.
Yeah, the doctor goes there of his own
And the
accord.
brigadier tells him that he'll pull every string possible to get it destroyed if the doctor comes with the brigadier to meet the new Chinese delegate. Like that was the
Right.
deal they made.
Yeah. And,
The new Chinese delegate is named Fu Peng.
yeah, and the brig mentions his name, and the doctor's like, well, he must speak Hokkien,
Yeah.
which is a language spoken in Taiwan. And this was actually incredibly complicated. Well, complicated to an extent, and kind of just ironic behind the scenes situation. So, well, we should explain what happens first. They go to the Chinese delegate, and he and the doctor hit it off, and they have this because they both speak Hokkien. And the doctor mentions that he spoke with Chairman Mao in Hokkien, which doesn't make sense. But yeah, so behind the scenes, originally this conversation was going to be, I believe, in Mandarin, probably. I mean,
Yeah.
either
Probably.
Mandarin or Cantonese, probably Mandarin. Which would explain, the doctor's like, okay, I spoke to Chairman Mao in this language, which was supposed to be, I guess, Mandarin, but turned out to be Hokkien. So yeah, behind the scenes, they were just gonna have the script writer's wife translate this like on the day of shooting. Like the writers just wrote out this conversation in English, and I guess they're like, well, we'll just have this translated right then and there. But it turns out the script writer's wife, or the script editor, I honestly don't know who it was for this serial, only spoke Hokkien. So they were just like, well, I guess we're just using that. And ironically, the original actor who was going to play Fu Peng knew Hokkien and not Mandarin. I'm just going to assume it's Mandarin.
Mm-hmm.
So they fired him, hired the guy who actually played Fu Peng because he spoke Mandarin, and then it turned out he had to read lines in Hokkien.
Wow.
So yeah, neither Pertwee nor whoever played Fu Peng
Yeah.
spoke the language.
Bit of trivia there. Great. Just brilliant behind the scenes work. But anyway, the brigadier keeps trying to get in a question to Fu Peng about, I guess, the important documents, and he's too busy glaring at the brigadier and talking to the doctor, so maybe
Yeah.
because the doctor called the brigadier a clown or whatever in his introduction speech.
Yeah, I think this is actually also the first time we've seen subtitles.
Yeah, it is.
Interesting enough, and I read also online it's one of the only times.
And they also only showed up the first time the doctor and Fu Peng spoke. When it cut back to them after cutting to Joe at the prison with Barnum, they didn't have
Yeah.
subtitles.
Well, they only had a few back and forth lines at that point, so whatever.
But yeah, it cuts back to the prison, and Joe's hanging out with Barnum, and Barnum is awake now, and his mind has been reverted to that of a child or something similar.
Yeah, basically, I guess the Keller machine kind of worked, He's not a hardened criminal anymore.
Yeah, but that's a bit extreme to say it worked.
Well, it accomplished what it set out to do. I mean, there were several terrible downsides, but still.
Well, they mentioned that it doesn't usually do that because it overreacted.
Yeah,
I
it usually
think,
just kills people.
what? No, it usually just erases their mind of evil things. Oh, until this serial when it starts killing people. But it's implied that the overreaction was caused by the prisoners rioting, which happens again when Mailer's about to go be processed by the machine. And then they all riot because some guy hid a gun under Mailer's pillow so he could use it to riot. And the machine kind of goes a bit wonky at that point. I guess it's feeding on the rage of the riot.
Yeah, probably.
That was the implication. And cut back to the delegation with the monster finding out about the thunderbolt. I don't know.
I know there was something at some point. The master, who's kind of orchestrating things behind the scenes here, finds out about some chemical weapon called the Thunderbolt. That while the peace conference is going on, is planned to be destroyed because chemical warfare was outlawed.
Yeah.
So the master's like, I can use that.
And I was fairly certain they mentioned that the explosive device in this bomb was nuclear, but we'll get there.
I honestly don't remember, but based on what happens in episode 6, I don't know.
Yeah, it's self-contradictory because the Doctor mentions the only way the killer device can be destroyed is either with an atomic blast or with something else. And then
But at the same time, the blast radius was so small.
Yeah.
I don't know. I honestly don't
Dialogue would seem to indicate it being nuclear, but the visuals seem to indicate it wouldn't.
This is actually probably just a discrepancy on their part and not us just remembering things wrong, honestly. But anyway, it's pretty unrelated, but did you notice the frame rate was really good in episode 2? It was really high, and it wasn't in any of the other episodes.
I didn't actually.
I think maybe possibly the restoration team, because I didn't understand why it would be so much higher in episode 2. So I was like, maybe the restoration team, when they set out to restore this serial, included intermittent frames, like they just duplicated frames, which would make it seem higher. Because none of the other episodes were like this, so maybe they just decided it wasn't worth the effort.
I don't know. Huh. That's weird.
Yeah, I would have to look more into that. Even though I doubt I'll be able to find anything about it. But yeah.
So anyway, the Doctor had found out at Stangmore Prison that Keller had, quote, an attractive young Chinese woman, unquote, as an assistant. And the Brigadier has mentioned Chin Lee. And the Doc's like, wait a minute. What? So
meanwhile, Chin Lee has been ordered by the Master to kill the American delegate.
Yeah.
So she goes to do that. She invites him into Fu Peng's room, but no one's there. And she steps out of the shadows and transforms into a dragon.
Is that ever explained?
I thought it was somehow related to the Keller machine.
I guess, but she appeared as a dragon to the Doctor in Brig 2, didn't she?
Yeah. There's a lot of unexplained stuff.
What if she's an alien? She's actually a dragon. Maybe she's a leftover Auton.
No, there's actually a lot of unexplained stuff in this serial.
I guess, but the main plot is wrapped up nicely at the end. It just ignores all the unexplained things. Which is the sign of a good serial.
Yeah, so apparently it was the dragon costume, which looked pretty bad, might I add. Despite them having a better costume budget and special effects budget, now that they're in color and into the Third Doctor, this dragon costume looked pretty bad. But anyway, apparently it was nicknamed Puff, the magic dragon behind the scenes.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. Interesting enough.
So much random trivia for this episode. So the Doctor takes this weird metal device off of Chin Lee's neck, and it's revealed that Chin Lee was Keller's assistant in the lab.
And the Doctor says there's only one person who could have put this here.
Yeah, the Master.
The Master.
So it turns out the Master is Edward Keller.
Emil Keller.
Yeah, Emil. I don't know why I said Edward. Knew it had an E.
Colonel Masters. No.
That was the best pseudonym.
But yeah, so the Doctor realizes the Master's orchestrating everything.
No surprise there, to be honest.
Yeah, no, not really.
The Doctor wasn't surprised either. He was just like, oh, okay. So
Meanwhile, there's this scene with Unit escorting Thunderbolt somewhere, and I remember this scene in particular because just happens to be a picture of it here on the wiki, but it was clearly just a painting of a missile. It was just a painted backdrop. Even though they had the prop, you could see the actual missile prop later in the serial. They couldn't have just, maybe it wasn't ready, I guess, but they couldn't have just used that.
Maybe it was like almost transmission date, and they're like, we don't have 24 minutes of episode, what are we gonna do? We don't have the prop anymore. We don't have anything. What are we gonna do? Like, well,
She got some guy to speed paint a missile on a wall.
not even a wall, just like a tarp, and they went and like hung it outside, and they're just filming outside.
Guys holding it right off camera. But yeah, Unit is escorting Thunderbolt to
Paint's still dripping while they're filming.
Unit is escorting Thunderbolt to wherever it's being taken to be destroyed.
The ocean, they're just gonna dump it in the ocean, I think.
They said that?
Yeah, the Brig was like, yeah, we're just gonna throw it off the pier.
What could possibly go wrong?
Well, I guess the thought is the water will destroy the electronics.
Yeah, and probably sink to the bottom of the ocean. Or
Yeah.
however deep the bay is. I mean, yeah, if they were pushing it off a pier, it would only sink to the bottom of like the bay. So even if it was non-functional, there'd still be a chemical weapon in the bay.
So this tells me this wasn't very well thought out.
Get with the program, Unit.
Unit's becoming more and more the bumbling guards of this show.
Yeah, especially with what happens later. All of them getting killed off.
Where does Unit recruit all its men from? Since it loses like half of its roster every serial.
Yeah, I also think it's implied that Unit is severely underfunded. So where are they getting these people?
I feel like Unit is that part of the government that they just formed and then forgot about, and they're like trying to do their job, but nobody remembers they exist, so they're like roadblocked at every stop.
Well, their existence is covered up, so it's not like some nationally known sect.
Poor Unit.
Brig has to be in charge of all this.
And he does a good job of it, I might add. The Brig does a good job of keeping everything together and not falling apart. Let's be honest, if the Brig just disappeared like the next day, everything would just fall apart. Benton's getting
Benton wouldn't be able to run anything.
and Yates is too busy getting himself shot.
Yeah, still, my favorite line from this serial was still, don't get in over your head, Benton, or whatever the Brig says. Or don't let it go to your head or something.
Yeah, it's later when you get in charge of the prison.
much
But anyways, yeah, clearly episode 3 wasn't that interesting, so we just went on that long tangent, but it just boils down to the Doctor going back to Stangmore Prison. Well, actually, the Master going back first, supplying Mailer with a bunch of stuff, and then they riot and take over the prison, and then the Doctor gets back.
The Master basically puts Mailer in charge.
Yeah, and the Doctor gets back because he hears of the riot, but then he obviously gets captured, and then the Master reveals to him that he wants the Doctor to try control the machine.
Right.
The Keller machine.
Yeah, and this is where you kind of find out, and this is expanded upon later, that the Master isn't really in control of the machine at all.
He likes to think he is.
Yeah, I guess. And I kind of like this characterization of the Master here because, like we said last time, it puts him more in the position of like a worthwhile rival for the Doctor, where he's not fully in control of the situation.
He's more chaotic than the Doctor is, I think. I mean, not that the Doctor isn't chaotic, but yeah.
I don't know. I'm actually, in the 2 serials he's been in, I'm kind of starting to like him more than the 3rd Doctor. I like his speech.
I warmed up to the 3rd Doctor for the first time in this serial, to be honest. Mainly because of the ending scene. Well, actually,
That's
basically
true.
the whole ending episode.
He was still kind of a jerk at times, I felt.
He's getting better.
Yeah, he is. There's definitely more characterization
Right.
of the Doctor now, rather than a few serials ago where he was essentially just telling everyone to shut up all the time.
Yeah, we'll elaborate on that when we get to the final scene, because then we can discuss it. But
Yeah.
anyway, the Doctor gets handcuffed to the machine, and the Master nopes out of there. And then you get more visions of the Doctor's fears, and there's Daleks, and...
Cybermen. And,
The wiki mentions that
presumably
Coquillion shows up in that sequence too, but
I didn't notice that.
neither did I. And Slar, leader of the Ice Warriors.
Oh.
Which would make sense, I guess. These are all villains that were reoccurring, except Coquillion, who was just there in the rescue. Well, no, not the rescue. Was it the rescue?
Yeah, it was the rescue. And he
then-
wasn't even actually an alien. He was just
Some guy in a suit. But anyway,
Scooby-Doo right there. But
would have gotten away with it if it weren't for you meddling Doctor.
yeah, the sequence was accompanied by exterminate, which
Annihilate!
I kind of liked it. I kind of missed the Daleks. I realized after watching this.
Yeah.
I'll be glad when they show up again.
Well,
it's almost time.
that comes with a caveat that I'll be glad if they show up if it's a good serial. If it's a terrible serial, then...
No, I think it'll be funny if it's a terrible serial.
Wow. What if it's just a serial where the Daleks just making cheese and the Doctor stops them?
I'd enjoy that.
Cheese! Pasteurize! Cheese!
What is that a reference to something, or are you just making this
No,
up
I'm
right now?
just making this up.
All right. Okay, so I was wondering about the Keller machine, because wasn't it either just flat out stated or implied that it projects your biggest fear onto you? Or was it just any random fear you have? Because the Doctor, at first, is, afraid of Inferno, or the events of Inferno, and then now he's afraid of all his old adversaries. And I was under the impression, until this point, that it projected your biggest fear.
It might be your biggest fear, but it's also mentioned that it adapts, so because it realized the Doctor wasn't human, it may have realized that it needed to kind of overwhelm him with more than one fear at a time to kill him.
Maybe, yeah.
I don't know.
knows?
I mean,
It's a nice theory. It makes sense.
yeah. I don't know.
But yeah, either way, that's another one of our cliffhangers. The Doctor almost getting killed by this machine, which, of course, he doesn't.
Surprisingly. Actually, not surprisingly. I don't know why it would be surprising that he didn't get killed by the machine, but anyway. Anyway, the Master saves the Doctor this time, actually. Mainly because the machine is drawing all the power from the whole prison, and the Master's like, whoa. And then the Doctor's like, yep, Master, sorry, can't control it. And the Master's all like, well, you can, you're just not trying hard enough, Doctor.
So he locks the Doctor up.
With Jo.
Yeah, Jo is still there.
She's just been trapped since episode 2.
Yeah, she's been there with what's his face?
Barnum.
Barnum.
Well, Barnum's been hanging out in the medical bay, mostly. Until, like, episode 5.
Yeah, they're still trapped.
Yeah.
So the Doctor shows up and they're like, hey, it's you.
More like she's all like, yo, you want some food? They're not going to give us any food. Because, no, well.
Because she threw their...
Does that happen?
That happens later.
Well,
After they use the breakfast tray to almost
they're like,
escape
hey,
and
let's
fail.
get some food. So, yeah. Anyway, the Master is attacked by the machine, and it's revealed that the Master's biggest fear is the Doctor.
Right, you see the Doctor laughing maniacally in the Master's vision. Mm-hmm. Which is interesting.
Yeah, this whole serial had a lot of interesting characterization with the Master and Doctor's relationship, too.
Yeah, and I accidentally spoiled something about their backstory for myself recently, which I'm not going to mention. Unlike
Probably something that was mentioned in the reboot that I already
I'll tell you after.
Okay.
Because you probably already know.
I did read the Master's wiki page this week. Well, the wiki page for, like, the general overview of the Master, and realized it was way more complicated than the Daleks page.
Oh boy.
So,
Hopefully
that's going to be great.
Hopefully we won't go off on another tangent like we did about the Daleks timeline a while back. But yeah, the Master, I think he runs away from the
Yeah,
from the
he
machine.
escapes and blocks the hall. The door to the hall, I mean.
Right, and by now the machine is essentially just gone rogue. It's its own faction here.
It's also revealed around this time that the machine isn't a machine, it's actually like a mind parasite encased in a machine.
Right, yeah.
Which is why it can learn and adapt.
I don't want to say I already knew that, but I wasn't surprised that they went that way. Like when they revealed that, it wasn't like, oh my god, wow. It was like, yeah, I kind of thought it was something like that.
Yeah, I mean, I wouldn't say I was surprised, but I did think it was unexpected.
Huh,
Because I was kind of like, that's interesting.
Maybe I somehow accidentally spoiled it for myself and just forgot. I don't know.
Who knows?
But
what happens? Oh, the brig. Well, actually, the convoy gets attacked. The convoy carrying Thunderbolt.
Right, because the master wants
to say Thunderball like the Bond film.
Yeah, the master orders some of the prison dudes.
Yeah, Mailer and the team.
I don't think Mailer goes. I'm pretty sure it's just some random dudes.
No, I think Mailer does, because the monster convinces Mailer to go by telling him that they're never going to let Mailer out of prison, but if he helps the monster get this weapon, that it's basically his ticket to freedom.
Huh. Okay, yeah. I remember that, but I don't know. Like I said, I probably should remember a bit more about this serial. But either way, the convoy gets attacked. A bunch of unit guys die.
More people get shot off motorcycles.
Yep. Running trend.
Yates gets shot in the leg or the arm or whatever.
Yeah, Yates attempts to radio headquarters, but fails miserably.
And gets captured by them, actually, because he follows them.
Well, yeah,
Yeah.
At first, he's kind of impressive, because he gets shot, like, point blank. Not point blank, but within reasonable distance. Mm-hmm. Like, gets up a few minutes later, I guess runs after them. Or no, he gets on a motorcycle, actually.
Yeah.
And then he just stealths his way around wherever this shed where they're keeping Thunderbolt. You know, the master really likes keeping stuff in random sheds or trailers in the middle of nowhere. But yeah, I don't know how Yates didn't get found during this scene, because he's running around like within the guard's peripheral vision, and then he just like lays flat down on the ground and no one notices him.
Yeah, and then when he stands up to run away, he does get noticed and captured.
Yeah, I mean, but he runs around for a considerable amount of time before getting noticed. I was surprised at his ability to not be seen.
Yeah, but he gets captured, so... And at this point...
Damn it, Yates.
The brig was at HQ, and he heard about the attack from Yates during the attack, and then they kind of went off the grid before mentioning where they were. But the brig and his team eventually extrapolate from the speed they were moving and where the radio call came in previously, that included
where
the
exactly
location.
the shed is.
Yeah. Well, where the team was attacked. Because the brig thinks the missile is going to be in Stangmore Prison because the attack happened really close to Stangmore Prison.
Oh, right, yeah, they don't locate the shed. Because there's that whole confusion, and the doctor's kind of a dick about it, too, later, but...
I don't think he was too much of a dick. It was more like a joke. I mean, the brigadier did smile.
I guess. He also kind of went off on him for saving his life.
Yeah, I think because of the doctor's afraid of a whole world burning, and if the master launches that missile, a nuclear war will start and the whole world will burn.
Yeah, we'll get there.
Burn.
We'll get there. Either way, the brig devises this...
Scheme,
right?
Well, we should mention the escape the doctor and Joe do with the dinner plate and the whole smash him over the head and escape, because that comes into play later when the doctor gets locked up again. They're like, well, we're not giving you food this time.
Yeah, essentially they just ask for breakfast, and when it's brought in, they snatch the plate and smash the guard over the head and attempt to escape but fail.
Right, and actually the doctor helps the monster control the machine at some point by building this loop of wire.
Right, the machine has started to be able to teleport.
Yeah.
Just randomly. This isn't explained either. All of a sudden it can teleport.
It
Presumably only around the prison, because it never leaves the prison.
Maybe only short distances, because it requires power. I don't know. The
But
mind parasite.
It can teleport.
Right, so...
Which I guess wouldn't be too strange, but it takes the parasite inside takes the machine with it. which is a little weird. But yeah, the doctor tries to contain it.
Yeah, it makes a loop. He makes a loop of wire that will simulate the neural activity of a brain, and throws it on and has the monster flip the switch. I don't know where the third cliffhanger with the doctor and the machine comes in. I think it was episode 5, probably.
Yeah, it was 5 with him and Joe.
Oh yeah. So anyway, that happens, and then the monster leaves, and he's hanging out with Thunderbolt right now, and the doctor escapes somehow again, but they end up back in the room with the machine, and then there's a cliffhanger where the machine is attacking them.
And obviously they don't die because in 5, Mailer and some other guy, I guess he had a name, but I guess he was like second in command to Mailer,
Yeah.
presumably. They start doing stuff. They barge in, and the machine, I guess, freaks out because it starts pursuing Mailer, essentially, because his mind is more evil than the doctor's or Joe's, so it decides he's better prey. Luckily saving the doctor and Joe.
And they all get out of there, safe and sound.
The doctor and Joe are captured again, right?
Yeah.
Yeah, they're captured again.
And then this must be where he contains the machine, because the machine's still contained when the brig busts in. But yeah, so yeah, the brig devises this incredibly convoluted plan to bust into the prison that he doesn't use, which is about going through the tunnel and busting in because it's an old fort, through the supply tunnel or whatever, which they don't use.
Yeah, they just disguise themselves as suppliers or a food distribution truck. And they just drive into the prison with unit foot soldiers behind the truck. Knock some people out.
Jump out of the truck when they're at the gate and then walk behind the truck instead of staying in for some reason.
Yeah, and there's this whole long scene, another montage of
death.
Montage of death. Yeah, there's a firefight between some of the guards and Unit. Unit ultimately wins out, but not before having a few of their people killed.
Again.
The brig kills a bunch of guards.
And Mailer.
Later.
Right at the start of episode 6.
Yeah, because 5 ends with this cliffhanger where the doctor and Joe are brought out of their cell for whatever reason, escorted by Mailer. So he's walking them throughout the prison, and he's like, don't try any funny stuff because I only need one of you and I can just shoot the other and it'll be the same exact situation or whatever. But Joe does try heroics, as Mailer puts it, and fails.
And then Mailer shoots the doctor.
The end.
Or at least so you assume. It just shows a shot of a gun firing. You're like, what? Then it
turns out it was the brig shooting Mailer.
Yeah. That misdirection, though. Hey, magic. It's all about keeping the audience's attention on the hand that doesn't contain the coin.
The hand that doesn't contain the gun. Except in this case, both hands contained guns. And only one of them utilized it.
Oh, gosh. Anyway, the doctor's like, well, thanks for saving me, Brig. Could have been quicker. Nice outfit, by the way.
He was more snarky about it, though, because he was like, wow, Brig, ever think about saving someone not in the nick of time? I don't know, I thought it was kind of a dick move for him to say that. Maybe he was just joking. Maybe I didn't realize while I was
Sounded like
watching
a joke to me. I mean, because then the Brig just smiles and follows the doctor out.
Yeah, I guess.
I mean, the Brig chuckles at it.
Pertwee's delivery, maybe a lot of the times we thought the third Doctor was being a jerk was just Pertwee's delivery.
Maybe.
Perhaps. Which, if it is, he should try and differentiate between, sarcasm/jokes and when he's actually
I'm just
mad.
waiting for the moment when all three doctors show up and see how that's going to go down, because that's going to be the best scene ever so far. Come on. Don't tell me you're not looking forward to seeing Troughton and Pertwee go at it.
They're going to go at it?
I don't know. But presumably they would. Their characters are so different that...
Well, yeah, presumably the first and second Doctors are going to kind of agree about things, and Pertwee's going to be the one.
And the first Doctor's going to be like, I was the first, guys. I should be in charge. Come on, you can totally see this is going to happen. Oh, yeah, with the hmms everywhere. But anyway, the Brig is like, so, where's the Thunderbolt? And the Doctor's like, what? It's not here. And he's like, wait, what? But Yates has escaped and has made it to Unit Mobile HQ, which just looks like someone's garden shed. Did you notice that?
Not really.
Well, there was a scene where the brig goes into and it's labeled Unit HQ, and it just looks like some garden shed somewhere.
Maybe it is.
I mean, yeah, you mentioned they were underfunded.
But yeah, they need to devise a plan to go get back or stop the Master from using Thunderbolt.
Yeah, and the big idea is like, well, you know, there's an abort switch. We could just detonate Thunderbolt, and that would kill the monster at the same time. Isn't it brilliant, guys? And they were like, well, yeah, seems good to me.
But the Doctor wants to bargain with the Master.
Well, not yet. After the Doctor and Joe go down and realize that the device they built to stop the machine broke, and then Barnum wanders in, and then the machine stops, and they realize that when Barnum's in the room, the machine doesn't work because of the complete lack of evil in Barnum's mind.
Yeah, it didn't make sense, but okay. Well, maybe not that it didn't make sense because, it's random sci-fi stuff, but they didn't really expand upon it. They're just like, okay, when Barnum's close to it, it doesn't work, so just got to accept that.
So the Doctor is trying to devise a way to destroy the mind parasite. Like I mentioned, he definitely mentions that it's super resilient and only atomic bomb or he said something else would destroy it too, but I don't remember what it was. But anyway,
it looks pretty good actually. The parasite.
Yeah.
Again, like another instance of pretty good props and special effects and everything.
So the Doctor has gone to the office where Benton has been left in charge, and that was the scene where the brig was like, "Don't let it go to your head, Benton." When he left Benton in charge, and then the most inconvenient phone placement ever.
Well, it's in a
box.
Yeah.
You have to open the box to get the phone.
I guess that's how it was back in the day with military phones and everything.
But did you see the 5 phones on the Brigadier's desk at the beginning of the serial?
Yeah, those weren't in boxes, but still.
Anyway, so it's the Master calling, and he's calling the Doctor, and he's like, well, what's up, Doctor? What's up, Doc? How's it going? Looks like I've won. And the Doc's like, yeah, sure. I've still got your dematerialization circuit, remember? And the Master's like, well, I'll give you the missile for the circuit. But, I mean, not like that. But anyway, they agree. And so the Doctor tells Benton, to tell the brig not to invade / capture / do anything to the Master. And the brig is super cryptic about it. And he's like, don't worry, Doctor. We've called it off. We can use the dematerialization circuit as a backup. The Doc's like, wait, what? Backup for what? Big, don't do anything stupid.
So, but Joe, meanwhile, is skeptical. She doesn't want the Master to get the dematerialization unit, and, neither does the Doctor, because they explain, okay, if they give him even if he fulfills his promise of taking the unit and returning the missile, he'll still be free to wander time and space and wreak havoc elsewhere. So there's really nothing stopping him, and there's literally only solves the immediate problem.
Which I guess is the more pressing one right now.
True, but the Doctor has another plan.
Right. But yeah, there's this unrelated scene, which I guess is just there for filler, where the Doctor, not the Doctor though, the Doctor who was treating Barnum busts in and is like, I'm sorry, Barnum, we have to take you back to the medical bay. And Joe's like, no! And the machine activates, and he's like, what? And he finds out that Barnum needs to stay with the machine. He's like, all right, just be careful with him, guys. And then he leaves.
Oh yeah, now that I think about it, that really didn't go anywhere. That really didn't need to be there. Huh.
Anyway,
wow.
the Doctor's has another plan, yeah. So he has Barnum carry out the device, the Keller machine, the mind parasite, the whatever.
Right. Because I don't know if we mentioned it before, but not only is Barnum safe from it, his being near it protects everyone from it.
Yeah.
Wasn't sure if we pointed that out.
We pointed out that it stops when Barnum is near.
Okay.
So the Monster only wants the Doctor to show up, so he shows up in a van with the machine.
They're hiding behind it again. Like Unit was earlier.
And so they talk for a bit, and the Doctor hands over the circuit, and the Monster's like, ha-ha! And then he runs away or whatever. But then Joe's like, now, Doctor! And they all leap away, and the machine activates and starts targeting the monster because I guess he's the most evil person nearby.
Makes sense.
Yeah, makes sense. Um, he eventually gets far enough away that he's out of the sphere of influence, I guess. Um, and the Doctor and Joe have leaped into a helicopter and are gonna fly away, and they're just waiting for Barnum to get in. But then, I'm not really sure what Barnum does here, but he like runs around for a bit, and then the monster gets in the van and runs him over.
I'm pretty sure because the master was like writhing on the floor in pain, so I thought Barnum went back to try and help him,
He might have.
which makes his death, because he gets run over by the master, even
Yeah.
more sad.
Well, it's also sad for the fact that like the Doctor and Joe were waiting for him, and the Doctor jumped out to like go get Barnum, and then like witnesses him just getting run over by the monster, and the Doctor's like, and he hops back in the helicopter, and they fly away, and they detonate the bomb. I guess the plan was to detonate it, kill the monster and the machine, and everyone lives happily ever after. But the monster
That
got
doesn't work.
away.
The master escapes.
Yeah, because the next scene is set in the prison, and it's the most depressing scene of the Third Doctor so far, where they're all reminiscing about Barnum, I guess.
Yeah, Joe tries to say something to the doctor, to the effect of she feels really guilty about it, and the doctor's like, well, he says, how do you think I feel? Which I think is kind of a harsh way of putting it, but I mean, essentially he just means like, yeah, so do I.
Well, I mean, he was the one who came up with the plan, so I think he's saying that he was the one who put Barnum there,
Yeah, I mean, essentially he was responsible.
and I think he's just feeling the impact of that.
Yeah. I mean, not that you can blame him for it, like, who would have known that that would have
Yeah.
happened, but he's still, essentially responsible.
Yeah. And then the monster calls, like, just wanted to let you know, Doctor, that I'm still alive, and I'm going to leave now, but I'll be back, and I'm going to destroy this entire planet when I am, so peace. And then it
I
ends.
really liked that speech, actually, because he says it so calmly and honestly kind of humorously. He's like, so long, Doctor. I'll be back one day. I'm definitely going to destroy this planet and can turn everything into a giant mess. Okay, bye.
Okay, bye. And then it ends.
The Doctor and the Brig say something right before it ends, but I honestly don't remember what.
He mentioned something like he's stuck with a brigadier or something, and the brigadier just smiles at it, and it ends. He's like, oh
Yeah.
yeah. He's like, oh, the monster's free to roam, and I'm stuck here on this damn planet with this bozo.
And the Brig's just like, ha!
Brig just chuckles.
Just an interesting ending. When it ended, I was like, wait, what? What? It's ending on that note? Not that it was a particularly bad note. I mean, it wasn't great, but it was kind of weird.
I don't know. I mean, like we said, it wrapped up all the pertinent plot points nicely. Like, in the beginning, you would assume that the whole peace conference and the Thunderbolt is unrelated to the prison, but then in the end, it tied them up nicely together.
Yeah.
And cleaned it up nicely.
They still glossed over things like, how did Chin Lee turn into a dragon? How did the machine start teleporting? But,
Suspension of
whatever.
disbelief, I guess.
There were more pertinent things they could have glossed over instead of those, and they didn't. So you got to give it that.
This
It
was
was an
written-
enjoyable serial.
Yeah, this was written pretty well, and it was written by the guy who wrote The Ambassadors of Death. So we're getting more reoccurring writers, and I'm not sure if we're actually getting more reoccurring writers, or if we're just noticing it more since the seasons are shorter, so there's less time between serials written by the same writer.
Well, we've definitely seen a lot of serials written by the same writer. Like Malcolm Hulk.
Robert Holmes,
Yeah.
Terrence Dix, who's currently the script editor, I think. Or no, maybe David Whitaker is the script editor. I don't really know.
I guess it was one of their lives who was going to translate the thing then. But yeah, I don't really think there's many recurring writers from like season 1
Right.
or something. But there are some recurring writers here and there, and yeah, I do think we're probably just noticing it more.
Yeah.
Because there have been.
Yeah. I mean, and yeah, like we mentioned, this serial had an interesting characterization between the Doctor and the monster's relationship, in that it's not entirely antagonistic. They don't like hate each other. I mean, the monster asks the Doctor for help, and I think the relationship between them is built on the fact that the monster just wants to basically cause chaos and destroy everything, and the Doctor wants to save everything. I don't think
Yeah.
they, like, as characters, hate each other.
Yeah, I mean, when they saw that working together would serve the common good, or when they're essentially both of their goals were aligned,
Right.
to stop the machine, they did work with each other.
And I
I
mean,
mean,
this
they're
happened again, I mean, previously in the Terror of the Autons when they drove out the Nestine
yeah.
right at the end.
I mean, their relationship isn't so antagonistic that they're against working with each other no matter what,
I mean, I
which is
guess
interesting.
part of that could be maybe the monster's just trying to save his own skin. But, I mean, on the other hand, this will presumably be more developed when the monster has his TARDIS back, now that he can just escape whenever.
Well, at least this serial developed, the Doctor and Master's relationship and the Master himself a lot more than his introduction.
Yeah, and we'll obviously get more characterization of both over this whole season
Yeah,
as they both show up. Which I also wanted to mention that this is the first serial where I started to warm up to the third Doctor. I mean, he's still kind of a jerk, but he's less of a jerk, and he's showing more of those doctorly qualities we've seen before. Like, I mean,
I agree.
he sacrifices himself basically to save Joe earlier in the serial, and
When was that?
when Mailer threatened to kill Joe if the Doctor didn't comply.
When he's escorting them?
No, in the when they were both in the cell the first time, and he takes the Doctor out to take to the Master, and
Oh,
he says
okay,
if the
yeah.
Doctor doesn't comply, he'll shoot Joe.
Yeah. Yeah. I mean, and then again, at the final scene
Yeah,
with everyone, sitting around just.
toasting to Barnum, or all of the unit soldiers who just get killed in the course of this serial.
But yeah, that's definitely something you would see, the second or first Doctor doing.
I think maybe it's just when the third Doctor showed up, he was arrogant, I guess, and over the course of the past 5, 6 serials now, he's been like humbled by the fact that he's hasn't been able to save everyone, and there's been a lot of failures. Even though he succeeded in the end, there were a lot of failures to get to that point.
Yeah, I guess. I still don't think he's particularly warmed up to Unit or the Brig. But we'll see. We'll see.
They're getting there. They're more lighthearted. They were more lighthearted in this serial. I mean, they're not necessarily the best of friends yet, but
Yeah, I guess they just forgot about the whole Brig killed all the Silurians thing.
or did
Oh
he?
well. Well, no, because they come back.
Exactly.
But they don't know that at this point.
That's true.
Neither the characters in the show nor probably the script
Unless
editors.
there was
Well, they might
expanded universe stuff. These serials are all unique in the fact that none of them seem to run into each other.
Yeah,
So
which-
it leaves a lot of space for other adventures.
have yeah.
I mean, it's kind of a cop-out to leave their terrible development of characters to expanded universe, but at the same time, it's still a possibility. So, yeah. Pretty good serial, in my opinion. Probably the best third Doctor serial, in my opinion, so far. I know you disagree.
Yeah, I'd say it's probably the second. I still like Doctor Who and the Silurians.
Yeah, The Ambassadors of Death was still good, in my opinion. I liked it still. But anyway, email us at thedoctordecadavegetable.com. Questions, comments, concerns, angry rants, fan fiction, or the Daleks make cheese.
Please, that last one, please.
That would actually be really funny, and I would not be opposed if anyone emailed us that. Check out the YouTube channel. This should be, by my calculations, if everything goes according to schedule, the first episode that goes out concurrently both on iTunes and on YouTube.
Yeah.
So yeah, finally. Which means we can now finally use the YouTube channel for other non-episode related things like we mentioned in the 1 year special that we wanted to do.
Yep.
So now that we're all caught up with that, we can explore that avenue more. So keep your eye out for that. That's at Trust Your Doctor on YouTube, youtube.com/user/trustyourdoctor. And check us out on iTunes and leave a rating if you liked it.
Also, check out the Facebook page. We wanted to mention last week we got that email from a fan saying, "Hey guys, maybe you want to describe the characters more." So we decided, okay, we'll instead of describing them, it would probably just be for the best if we post more pictures on Facebook. So we're definitely going to start doing that. Maybe character introductions or just interesting things that the characters might look like. Because the Doctor in this serial, we failed to mention, was wearing that extravagant purple cape.
And red coat. This is his first costume change, I think, officially.
Well, he wore the red coat before, but for a minute.
A minute, yeah. And he wore the black coat for the rest of that serial. So this was the first time he went an entire serial with an entirely different colored coat. So there you go. We've mentioned it now.
And yeah, next week we have the Claws of Axos. But until then, the end.